March 8th will, of course, be one of the most anticipated matchups, being Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev for the UFC light heavyweight belt. Now, of course, the card is, decently good stuff. Unfortunately, Justin Gaethje will no longer be fighting Dan Hooker. He will now be fighting Rafael Fiziev. It's a rematch. Obviously, we're not going to get too into it. Now, of course, there's a lot of questions on how Justin Gaethje is going to return, considering he got knocked out cold in a pretty bad beatdown in his last fight, and he's getting up there in age. But considering he's fighting a dude he already beat before, and that dude's been falling down the rankings, it's safe to assume Gaethje most likely will get it done again, but you never know. It's a 50-50 matchup at this point. But besides that, we will only be talking about the main event, being Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev. Now, Ankalaev is 19-1, 10 wins by way of knockout, 9 decision wins, and 1 submission. That is a very important thing to look at, right? That one loss was, of course, to Paul Craig by, of course, submission in the very last second. Now, of course, he also has a draw and a no contest. That draw was against Jan Blachowicz, which I do believe was for the vacant light heavyweight title. It was a draw, so neither became champion. And his one no contest was against Johnny Walker because I believed he needed him while he was down. Doesn't matter because when they rematch, he knocked him out. So, yeah. But now, of course, he has some other names on his record. Of course, his last fight was against Alexander Rakic. I think that's how you pronounce it. Unanimous decision. Boring fight, a little bit. Not too boring, but it's mostly because of Rakic, because he wasn't moving forward like he usually does. He was on his back foot, and it's kind of hard to knock someone out that's constantly going on his back foot, right? But he's also beaten, of course, Johnny Walker, Anthony Smith, Volkan Ozdemir, Thiago Santos, Nikita Krylov, and some other good guys. Now, of course, the reason why people are so anticipated for this fight is for the sole fact that people believed that Pereira was ducking Ankalaev. And it was because when he was at light heavyweight, he essentially skipped Ankalaev for another title shot. Now, of course, Ankalaev was already had a draw for the title, so I guess that makes sense why they didn't give it to him again. But once he beat him, he faced people like Hill and Prohaska again, but then again, those were former world champions. Now, of course, the rematch between Prohaska was when people started questioning if he was ducking Ankalaev, because why would he face Prohaska? And, of course, it was a late replacement fight for a main event. But, like, you didn't have to do it. You didn't have to face him again, right? But besides that, once he fought Khalil Roundtree, now that was when all the speculation was going on. Now he's ducking him. Now he's scared of Ankalaev, right? But we'll talk about that later because he's facing Poatan Pereira, Alex Pereira. 12 wins and 2 losses, 10 wins by way of knockout, and 2 decision wins. That's right, he's only been to the decision twice. He lost both times, both by stoppage, one by knockout, and one by submission. Of course, his submission was his very first professional MMA fight. Was submitted. Obviously, makes sense. He's a kickboxer. He has no ground game, right? But his other loss was against Israel Adesanya, where he got knocked out in the second round, which, obviously makes sense when you face the same guy 4 times. Eventually, he might learn your skills and all that stuff, right? But he already beat him before, so that's how he became champion in middleweight. And his 2 decision wins, one comes by Bruno Silva, the very much durable guy, and Jan Blachowicz, a literal tank. So, makes sense why he went decision with those 2 people, right? But he has beaten a bunch of former world... Actually, he has faced basically a bunch of world champions consecutively. He beat Sean Strickland, which later went on to win the middleweight belt. He beat Adesanya, who was, of course, the middleweight champion. He lost Adesanya, but once again, still the champion. Jan Blachowicz, former world champion. Harry Prohaska, former world champion. Jamal Hill, former world champion. Harry Prohaska again, former world champion. And then Khalil Roundtree, which is the outsider of the group. But then again, I don't think there's any more champions left in the division that he could beat. So Pereira has a pretty good record. But of course, there's a lot of holes in his resume, as people would say, because none of them have really been wrestlers. Now, of course, the weird thing is neither is Ankalaev. Ankalaev has no submission wins, and he's not even known for his submission game. He just can take you down, which, don't get me wrong, is always good against Pereira, but he doesn't have enough submission threat to really put away Pereira. He's going to have to stand with him whether he likes it or not, right? But Pereira is a weird thing. He's been getting better and better at fighting. I don't know how. This man's 37. He should not be getting better, but he is. And of course, never mind. It makes sense. He started super late, and he has very little fights under his belts. So yeah, he's a decently young 37-year-old, right? But of course, enough dilly-dallying, talking about resumes, people they've beaten. Who do I think is going to win? Now, this is a very interesting matchup. This is a 50-50 fight, actually, on basically all odds. It makes sense because Ankalaev is a very explosive striker and somewhat of a counter puncher, which is very important because the other guys he's faced not really that much countering, except Adesanya, and obviously how that ended up. And of course he has takedown ability, right? I think he took down Jan Blachowicz, he took down a lot of other people, but he never really needed to truly rely on it, right? He's usually a striker, and he has a bit of knockouts under his belt as well. But the thing is, it's that calf kick from Periera. That's the thing everyone's talking about. They always talk about the takedown of Ankalaev, and it's obviously something that people should look out for. But considering how Jan Blachowicz destroyed Ankalaev's legs during the fight, now of course he managed to rally back. So I'll take it with a grain of salt. But Pereira's calf kicks are a lot worse. A lot worse. He's literally sweeping people under, sweeping people away with his low calf kicks, right? And he has power. And matter of fact, he's actually somewhat gotten better defensively, Don't get me wrong, it's a very, I guess you could say, basic defense of just going backwards and, pulling back. But, it works. It works a lot. Especially if you saw Roundtree, that fight. He got in that, flow state people talk about? And he was dodging a bunch of punches. He's been getting better. I don't know. This man is crazy. He's been getting better. I don't know. I think it was at UFC 300 when they were doing, promotional things. They were asking Poatan, oh, how do you rank yourself? I rank myself a decent thing, right? Because I'm always getting better. I'm like, this is 36. He's not getting better. He is getting better, right? But here's the thing. Ankalaev has takedown, and he has a very good shot at winning. There is no, bad answer of who you think is going to win. If you think Ankalaev is going to win, it makes sense. He's an explosive striker, and he can take down Periera, right? Any momentum Periera can make, Ankalaev can just probably take him down and ruin it, right? But I don't think he can submit him. So he's going to have to stand with Periera. And eventually one of Pereira's big shots is going to land. I mean, he has more tools in his utility belt than Ankalaev. Ankalaev, don't get me wrong, is not that far off. But Periera is stronger and he has better skills, obviously being a 2-division kickboxing champion. Very impressive feat. And he's faced a wide variety of, albeit not submission artists, but strikers, right? He's faced a bunch of strikers before. He's faced a bunch of different styles. Not to mention, he beat Adesanya, arguably one of the best strikers in the division, either of his era or history, right? And yeah, he just faced wide variety of strikers that will most likely give him the edge against Ankalaev. Ankalaev has faced good opposition, but not as good as Periera, which is weird. But yeah, give me Periera stopping Ankalaev in the 4th round. Not by a left hook. I don't think it's going to be a left hook. Give me a straight right hand. Once again, if you're picking Ankalaev to win, I don't blame you. It makes sense. He has all the things he needs to beat Periera. I just don't think he gets it done, right? But besides that, what do you guys think? Do you think I'm underestimating Ankalaev? Do you think I'm overestimating Alex Periera? Leave it in the comments below. I'd love to hear it. But besides that, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you in the next one.